See the child. He is pale and thin. He wears a thin and ragged linen shirt. He stokes the scullery fire. Outside lie dark-turned fields with rags of snow, and darker woods. Beyond that harbor yet a few last wolves. His folk are known for of wood and drawers of water, but in truth, his father has been a schoolmaster. He lies in drink. He quotes from poets whose names are not a list. The boy crouches by the fire and watches him. Night of your birth. 33. The Leonid, they were called. God, how the stars did fall. It looked for blackness, holes in the heavens. The dipper stove, the mother dead these 14 years, did incubate in her own bosom the creature who would carry her off. The father never speaks her name. The child does not know it. He has a sister in this world that he will not see again. He watches, pale and unwashed. He can neither read nor write, and in him broods already a taste for mindless violence. All history present in that visage. The child, the father of the man. At 14, he runs away. He will not see again the freezing kitchen house in the pre-dawn. Dark. The firewood, the washpots. He wanders west as far as Memphis, a solitary migrant upon that flat and pastoral landscape. Blacks in the fields, lank and stooped, their fingers spider-like amongst bowls of cotton. A shadowed agony in the garden, against the sun's declining figures, moving in the slower dusk across a paper skyline. A lone dark husbandman, pursuing mule and harrow down the rain-blown bottomland toward night. A year later, he is in St. Louis. He is taken on for New Orleans, aboard a flatboat. 42 days on the river. At night, the steamboats hoot and trudge past through the black waters a lull-light, like cities adrift. They break up the float and sell the lumber, and he walks in the streets and hears tongues he has not heard before. He lives in a room above a courtyard behind a tavern. He comes down at night like some fairy book beast to fight with the sailors. He is not big buff, has big wrists, big hands. His shoulders are set close. The child's face is curiously untouched beam. The scars, the eyes oddly innocent. They fight with fists, with feet, with bottles or knives. All races, all breeds. Men whose speech sounds like the grunting of apes. Men from lands so far and queer that standing over them where they lie bleeding. In the mud he feels mankind itself vindicated. On a certain night, a Maltese boatswain shoots him in the back with a small pistol, swinging to deal with the man he is shot again, just below the heart. The man flees, and he leans against Theber, with the blood running out of his shirt. The others look away. After a while, he sits on the floor. He lies in a cot in the room upstairs. For 2 weeks, while the tavern keeper's wife attends him. She brings his meals. She carries out his slops. A hard-looking woman with a wiry body like Amon's. By the time he is mended, he has no money to pay her, and he leaves in the night and on the riverbank until he can find a boat that will take him on. The boat is going to Texas. Only now is the child finally divested of all that he has been. His origins are become remote as Ishi's destiny, and not again. In all the world's turning will there be terrains, so wild and barbarous tawdry whether the stuff of creation may be shaped to man's will, or whether his own heart is no to know their kind of clay. The passengers are a diffident lot. They cage their eyes, and no man asks another what it is that brings him here. He sleeps on the deck, a pilgrim among others. He watches the dim shore rise and fall. Gray seabirds gawking. Flights of pelicans coastwise above gray swells. They disembark aboard a lighter, settlers with their chattels, all studying the low coastline. death and bite of sand and scrub pines swimming in the haze. He walks through the narrow streets of the port. The air smells of salt and news on lumber. At night, whores call to him from the dark like souls in want. A week, and he is on the move again. A few dollars in his purse that he's earned, walking the sand roads of the southern night, alone. His shawls balled in the cotton pockets of his cheap coat. Earthen causeways across the marshland. Egrets in there, rookeries white as candles among the moss. The wind has a raw edge to it, and leaves lope by the roadside and shelter on in the night fields. He moves north through small settlements and farms, working for day wages and found. He sees a parasite hanged in Across roads. Hamlet and the man's friends run forward and pull his legs, and he hangs dead from his rope, while urine darkens his trousers. He works in a sawmill. He works in a diphtheria penthouse. He takes his pay from a farmer and aged mule, and to back this animal in the spring of the year 1849, he rides up through Latter-day Republic of Fredonia into the town of Neckargages. The Reverend Green had been playing to a full house daily as long as the rain had been falling, and the rain had been falling for 2 weeks. When the kid ducked into the ratty canvas tent, there was standing room along the walls, a place or two, and such a heady reek of the wet and bathless that they themselves would sally forth into the downpour. Now and again for fresh airborne, the rain drove them in again. He stood with others of his kind along the back wall. The only thing that might have distinguished him in that crowd was that he was not armed. Neighbors, said the Reverend, he couldn't stay out of these here hellholes, right here in the Kudaches. I said to him, you going to take the Son of God in there with ye? And he said, oh no, I ain't. And I said, don't you know that he said I will follow ye always, even on tooth end of the road? Well, he said, I ain't asking nobody to go nowheres. And I said, neighbor, you don't need to ask. He's a-going to be there with the every step of the way, whether ye ask it or the don't. I said, neighbor, you can't get shed of him. Now, are you going to drag him into that hellblinder you ever see? Such a place for rain. The kid had been watching the Reverend. He turned to the man who spoke. He wore long moustaches after the fashion of teamsters, and he wore a wide brim hat with a low round crown. He was slightly wide, and he was watching the kid earnestly, as if he'd know his opinion about the rain. I just got here, said the kid. Well, it beats all I ever seen. The kid nodded. An enormous man dressed in an oilcloth slicker had entered the tent and removed his hat. He was bald as a stone, and he had no trace of beard, and he had no brows, to his eyes, nor lashes to them. He was close on 7 feet in height, and he stood smoking a cigar, even in this nomadic house of God, and he seemed to have removed his hat only to just see the rain from it, for now he put it on again. The Reverend had stopped his sermon altogether. There was no sound in the tent. All watched the man. He adjusted the hat, and then pushed his way forward as far as the crateboard pulpit where the Reverend stood, and there he turned to address the Reverend's congregation. His face was serene and strangely childlike. His hands were small. He held them out. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel it my duty to inform you that the man holding this revival is Anim. He holds no papers of divinity from any institution recognized or improvised. He is altogether devoid of the least qualification to the office he has usurped, and has only committed to memory a few passages from the good book for the purpose of lending to his fraudulent sermons some faint flavor of the piety he despises. In truth, the gentleman standing here before you, posing as a minister of the Lord, is not only totally illiterate, but is also wanted by the law in the states of Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Oh God, cried the Reverend. Lies, lies. He began reading feverishly from his opened Bible on a variety of charges, the most recent of which involved a girl of 11 years, said 11, who had come to him in trust, and whom he was surprised in the act of violating while actually clothed in the livery of his God. A moan swept through the crowd. A lady sank to her knees. "This is him," cried the Reverend, sobbing. "This is him, the devil. Here he stands. Let's hang the turd," called an ugly thug from the gallery to the rear. Not 3 weeks before this, he was run out of Fort Smith, Arkansas for having congress with a goat. Yes, lady, that is what I said. Goat. Why, damn my eyes if I want. "Shoot the son of a bitch," said a man rising at the far side of the tent, and drawing a pistol from his boot, he leveled it and fired. The young teamster instantly produced a knife from his clothing and unseamed the tent and stepped outside into the rain. The kid followed. They ducked low and ran across the mud toward the hotel. Already gunfire was general within the tent, and a dozen exits had been hacked through the canvas walls, and people were pouring out. Women screaming, folk stumbling, folk trampled underfoot in the mud. The kid and his friend reached the hotel gallery and wiped the water from their eyes and turned to watch. As they did so, the tent began to sway and buckle, and like a huge and wounded Medusa, it slowly settled to the ground, trailing tattered canvas wall, sand, ratty guy ropes over the ground.